I'm Steve Coburn, Executive Director of Wharton Digital Press, and I'm here to interview Pete Fader, whose new book in the Wharton Executive Education Essentials series is Customer Centricity. Pete, welcome.
Great to be here.
Let me ask you about something in the book, Pete. You argue that Apple, Nordstrom, and Starbucks are customer-friendly but not customer-centric. What does that mean?
Too many people think that they're the same thing. Too many people think that being customer-centric means doing everything that your customers want for them, and that's not the case. Being friendly, offering good service is a part of customer centricity, but it's not the whole thing. And one of the differences, a huge distinction in customer centricity, it means that you're going to be friendly, you're going to provide good service, you're going to develop new products and services for the special focal customers, the ones that provide a lot of value for you, but not necessarily for the other ones. You need to pick and choose. Some customers deserve the special treatment, and some, well, if they want to buy from you, that's great, but they're not going to be treated the same.
Does that mean you ignore all of the customers who aren't special?
You're not going to ignore customers, you're not going to fire customers, you're not going to treat them badly, but you will treat some better than others. And you're going to be real careful in who you choose to treat that way and what that treatment means. Does it mean you give those special customers absolutely everything? Maybe not. But you're definitely going to give them more consideration than customers that, frankly, aren't worth that much to you.
What does it mean to be a customer-centric company? And can you give me some examples of companies that you think are customer-centric?
So the primary distinction that makes a company customer-centric, or at least a requirement behind customer centricity, is the ability to understand customers at a fairly granular level, to be able to identify the customers or the segments of customers who are valuable from the ones who aren't. If you can't sort out your customers, if you can't look at them and know who's good and who's bad, then you can't be customer-centric. So that's step one. Step two is having an ability, both an operational ability as well as an organizational capability, to be able to deliver different products and services to different kinds of customers. And that's tough to do. For the most part, we think about the most customer-centric companies being online firms, such as Amazon and Netflix. Those are great examples. But by no means is it limited to e-commerce firms. We'll see others like Capital One and Harrah's and even IBM as examples of companies that are fairly customer-centric.
How would a company go about identifying the customers it should focus on, that it should pay the most attention to?
So companies have been sorting through their customers for a long time, ever since they first realized that customers are different from each other and might deserve some differential treatment. So the basis that companies use to come up with this segmentation, that's the key. In the old days, the basis of segmentation used to be simple, observable things like demographics or geography, just easily identifiable characteristics. But the real key is to segment customers on their value. And I'm not talking about historic profitability. I'm talking about future-looking customer lifetime value, which might be related to profitability, but we want to sort our customers out based on what they will be worth to the firm in the future.
Okay. And how would you go about calculating, how do you determine customer lifetime value?
That's a key question. That's actually been a big focus of my research for a number of years now. So I've been focusing on those methods and how CLV would vary based on whether you're in a contractual business or a non-contractual business, lots of different characteristics that will lead to lots of different CLV formulas. And it's fairly technical, and we won't necessarily get into those details here, but there's a couple of important considerations. One I just mentioned is you must take into account the different kind of business setting that you're in. Secondly, you must take into account heterogeneity, the fact that different customers are going to have very different CLV values. And thirdly, you're going to look at other kinds of factors, the cost of acquisition, the likelihood that different kinds of customers are going to stay with you. So there's a number of factors that come together. Unfortunately, for a lot of firms, they feel it's just too complicated. They don't want to think about it, and they'll oversimplify it. They'll ignore some of these distinctions, and they'll use a one-size-fits-all formula across all their customers that doesn't vary based on the business model, and it leads to more or less a garbage-in, garbage-out situation.
Along the same line, Pete, you talk a lot in the book about CRM, customer relationship management, and you mentioned that most firms don't handle it well. What do they do wrong? How do you do it right?
So CRM is a really critical step if you're going to be customer-centric. That's the front line. That's going to help you collect the data and organize it properly and understand which message you're going to send through to which customer, through which channel, at which time. So CRM is really the interface that pulls it all together. But unfortunately, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. And instead of it being just a tool that helps you achieve customer centricity, it becomes this massive system or set of systems that get embedded in a company, become this huge operational challenge, and then once it's there, people don't know quite what to do with it because it's often so complex. So the first step of CRM is keeping it real simple, just first starting with real simple data, and then simple queries that you want to make on that data, keeping the operational parts around it simple, and then building up and adding complexity as a company has a genuine need for it. So CRM has gotten kind of a bad reputation. I think it's undeserved. I don't think it's the fault of CRM or the vendors that sell CRM systems, but the companies that are bringing it in are biting off more than they can chew in many cases.
Let me ask you another question. In the book, you talk about this current generation of consumers as spoiled, as knowing what they want and wanting it immediately. What are the implications of that for firms, for companies?
Well, first of all, let's think about the driver of it. It's all about technology. That today's customers are so much more informed. Economic times in general tend to be better than they were, say, 50 or 60 years ago. So customers are far more empowered than they ever were before. A lot of companies spend their time pushing back, hoping for the old days when they could just put a product out there and just leave it to the customers to figure out how to use it and how to integrate it with other products and services. Well, that's not the case anymore. So instead of just, again, pushing back and complaining, companies have to realize that instead of just putting products out there, that they really need to be a solutions provider. And that's kind of a corny phrase these days, but I think there's some validity to it, that companies need to help consumers figure out how their products and services are going to fit into their lives and offer solutions and not just ingredients.
You talk a lot in the book, Pete, about the difference between a product-centric and a customer-centric strategy. What's the difference? Can you spell it out quickly?
Product-centric strategy would be pretty much every company on the planet. You look at their org chart where it's broken up by different kinds of products. You look at the incentives. You look at the language they use. You look at the performance metrics that they rely on. It's all based on different kinds of products. The whole business model is based on producing something or a set of somethings in really high volumes and at really low cost, and that's going to drop to the bottom line. So that's more or less business as usual. And I'm not suggesting that it's easy, and I'm not suggesting that it's going away tomorrow, but I'm suggesting that there are alternatives. And instead, if you organize the company around customers, different types of customers, having customer segment managers who are just as powerful as today's product managers are, and giving them the right incentives and giving them the right resources and tools, that for many companies it can actually be a more profitable way to go to market.
Great. One of the things that surprised me in the book is you say that the customer doesn't exist. We've been talking about customers all afternoon. What does that mean?
Well, let's phrase that real carefully. It's the notion of the customer doesn't exist. One of the things that drives me crazy is when I hear managers or entrepreneurs talking about the customer, doing back of the envelope calculations about what the customer will be worth or how the customer will respond to this kind of product or that kind of offer. And by talking about the customer or by talking about the average customer, that doesn't do justice to the vast heterogeneity, the incredible differences across our customers in terms of their propensity to buy, in terms of their propensity to talk to each other, their propensity to respond to different kinds of offers. And so, again, step one of being customer-centric is not only acknowledging the heterogeneity, but celebrating it, saying, wow, all this heterogeneity is a great thing because it lets us pick and choose different kinds of customers. So when we say the customer, we're selling ourselves short. And I think it's important to not use those words and to always have a plural there.
Great. Let me ask you, what was your biggest surprise in writing this book?
Well, the reason I wrote the book is because, as I said before, I'm a model builder. I'm interested in the methods. I'm interested in helping companies improve their quantitative literacy to be able to assess the value of the customers and do more effective targeting and so on. And I realized that I need to take a step back, or actually a step up. I need to understand the strategies into which these models and methods and analyses would fit. So as I stepped back and looked at the kinds of strategies, to look at what experts are saying about customer centricity and loyalty and all these higher level terms, I was surprised at just how ambiguous a lot of these definitions were, or how contradictory they were. So you pick up 3 different books on customer centricity, and you get 4 different definitions about it. So for me, a really big piece of it was to bring clarity, was to try to bring some consensus to it. I'm not sure I'm going to achieve that goal, but I think it's important for everyone, especially for firms that want to call themselves that, because they have to understand what it means.
Sure. I think the book does a great job of making a customer-centric approach clear.
Well, that's my objective, and I'm glad you saw it that way. I hope that other readers do as well. There's a lot of provocative aspects of the book. Part of it, because a lot of the things that I believe are actually at odds with a lot of the conventional wisdom, but part of it is to provoke a discussion, is to get people to really think about what this stuff means, whether it's even right for them. For many firms, this customer centricity stuff might not even be essential. They shouldn't even go there. But I want firms to be able to make an intelligent, informed decision about whether to go there and what it means when they start to do it.
How does the book help a firm become customer-centric?
Well, for one thing, it does bring some clarity. So it's going to help them understand what it is, what are the steps, not only the models that they need to run, but the organizational structures, the incentives for employees, and so on. So it's getting organized around this strategy. And once again, it's real hard to just pick a strategy and run with it. You need to understand what all these consequences are going to be before you get into it. So I'm hoping to lay out a bit of a roadmap for firms to understand where they're going if they choose to go there.
Well, thank you, Peter. We've enjoyed talking about your book, Customer Centricity, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
I've always enjoyed doing so. Thanks, Steve.